Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. All right, so speaking of taking away, HouseFresh, a small product review site focusing on air purifiers and home environment hygiene, got a lot of attention for a post about kind of ranking that they did a couple of months ago, and they're back with another one. What does it say, David?
Basically that the situation's gotten even worse. They've clearly been a victim of one of the recent algorithm updates. And I think that's, it is somewhat surprising. I guess I would have expected that maybe the product team at Google would have been a little bit more not sensitive to HouseFresh's particular problem, but this perception broadly that they're not surfacing enough hidden gems, of which HouseFresh theoretically is one, and that the latest update actually, at least in the case of HouseFresh, made the situation worse. We don't know how broadly applicable that is, whether other niche sites around the web have experienced a similar decline as HouseFresh, but I would say anecdotally, it feels like at the very least, the situation has not improved for sort of niche sites that clearly demonstrate a high degree of the EEAT variables that Google is purportedly looking for with their algorithm. So I guess this article struck me. First of all, this is nothing I'm saying is meant to disparage either HouseFresh or the author. I thought it was absolutely terrific post. Really well, lays out just very, very well exactly what is happening in a lot of these sort of product review search results where, these massive publishing houses, in many cases owned by private equity companies, are just leveraging the strength of their domain to publish articles in spaces that they know are highly popular. There's a lot of search volume, and that they're largely profitable in terms of either getting eyeballs, if that's how they monetize, or in some cases, through affiliate links or some other way of monetizing. So basically the sort of domain strength plus good SEO, good keyword research is sort of ruining the search results in HouseFresh's domain. And again, this is not meant to disparage the article. If anything, I thought it was a very clear narrative of exactly how this is happening. However, this has been happening for, I would say, at least 7 or 8 years, possibly longer, depending on exactly what niche you're in, where, Eric Schmidt said it as far back as I think it was 2012 in his one of his testimonies, that brands are how you sort out the cesspool of the internet. So Google has long favored these large brands. And I think that the two things have probably happened. Number one, it's now, thanks to AI, it's now much cheaper to produce content at scale. Number two, I actually think that there's just many more brands who understand the power of SEO today versus 10 years ago, and understand just how much of an asset their domain strength is and their brand strength is. And so they're getting smarter about monetizing that asset. And I don't think that that's a new thing. I feel like that strategy has been in place for, close to a decade. And what is new is that this article has sort of put a spotlight on exactly what that strategy is. And I think I asked this question on LinkedIn, why is this article getting so much attention now? And I think people, both Rand Fishkin and Miriam Ellis, friends of the pod, commented that they feel like this is sort of a concrete example of something that people have been feeling for the last 2, 3, 4 years, and that's why it sort of crystallizes the narrative, is why it's gotten so much play.
Right. It seems like a sort of a metaphor or an instance of a much larger phenomenon. I mean, one of the things that's really true about this, as you say, is how well documented it is. How sort of cynical these larger brands are. And there's also the phenomenon.
Is it cynical or is it smart business? I don't think it's
well,
cynical.
No. So I would argue that it's a totally rational response to Google's algorithm, right? That's what I said in the newsletter. That I hate Forbes. I think Forbes is a shitty publication. They've destroyed the brand with their strategy. but it was a rational response to what Google was doing, right? There's a crisis in traditional publishing. What are they going to do? This is a totally rational response, and it's paid off for them in a big way. The other thing, in addition to sort of the brand favoritism, is the user engagement. AJ Cohn's article, Google enough talks about how people respond to brands. They're familiar. They click on the brand links. That reinforces the ranking, the ranking position of these brands. So it's like this vicious cycle where you get the brands strategizing around Google's algorithm for revenue, which they absolutely need to survive, and then the consumer response to that. So it's just all of these things coming together in this example. And you've also got in some cases the parasite SEO, and you've got the site reputation abuse and parasite SEO are sort of the same thing.
But to some extent, the problem is the business plan of this company, right? I mean, we've said this for years. The reality is you have to own your relationship with your client. And if you're arbitraging Google to make a living, it's a very precarious business proposition. Yeah. It's a failing proposition sooner or later. I don't know how these people make their living, but it just strikes me that they have been hit by, they were in this arbitrage game as much as anybody else. They're losing, they were winning. And, it just points out the problem with relying on Google for your income.
Well, these are magazines in many cases. I know, David, you wanted to talk about site reputation abuse. These are magazines in some cases, Condé Nast, whoever owns Good Housekeeping.
Meredith was the example that she brought up.
Yeah, Meredith. And nobody's buying physical magazines. I mean, magazines are still around, but they don't have anything like the revenue or the subscription revenue, the ad revenue they used to have. So you have to turn to digital sources. They don't have enough scale to create their own ad networks, although some people are trying to do that. So what are their options? They're
go into a different line of business. Become a plumber. I mean, it doesn't matter. The reality is, if it's not a good line of business because Google has destroyed it, it's not a good line of business because Google has destroyed it. Now, whether Google should be allowed to destroy lines of businesses is another question.
The newspaper industry, right? This is an adjacent thing. Same problem, but that's a different discussion.
Well, but again, they were overcharging, under-delivering on quality of ads, or many of them were. And so, Google came in and produced a much cheaper, much more effective product, put them all out of business. Whether Google should be allowed to do that, but listening to HouseFresh reminds me of listening to Yelp. I mean, Yelp has made this transition away from their need for Google traffic to some extent successfully, despite their grumping all along the way. And they've been profitable by changing how they do business. And I think in the end, any business that wants to survive can't rely on Google. I
agree. I agree. David, what were you going to say about that?
Well, a couple things. And first of all, the author said, she explicitly said Google doesn't know HouseFresh anything. She's well aware of that sort of as a starting point. But you're right, Mike, that there seems to not be maybe quite as much exploration of alternative business models. Can you invent a widget that attaches to an air purifier that tells you, how efficient it is relative to other air purifiers in the network, something like that. There's got to be something else that HouseFresh can do outside of relying on Google for traffic. Okay. Two other things I wanted to bring up as part of this article. The first is these guys are particularly at the mercy of an increasing number of PLAs and organic shopping results in the overall SERP, which this site is probably not eligible for. I don't know that to be specifically true. I don't know whether they carry inventory or not, but the emergence of these very rich image focused, price focused ads and organic units has probably caused a huge decrease in traffic. I won't say it's as much as the sort of brand dial getting turned to 11, but these two factors are converging with respect to any product site that doesn't actually carry products. I think increasingly Google is looking to send traffic to people who are eligible for Merchant Center, whether that's intentional or not. That is clearly what the outcome of these new SERP elements are or is. So that's the first thing I'd say. And then the second thing, Greg, you brought up the sort of relationship to the parasite SEO, site reputation abuse policy. And Google now has rolled that out, a couple days ago in early May of 2024. I find it very, very interesting that they started with a manual version of this. That tells me that they are not confident that their algorithm can actually do this at scale. Mike has documented for years how loath Google is to do anything that can't scale. And this to me is a serious admission of the weakness of their algorithm in identifying what topics a site should be relevant for. And so I don't know where this goes, but if they keep doing manual actions, it is a very bad sign for the quality of the search quality team today.
Well, I mean, there's the issue of the third party relationship with the domain that has the authority, right? The coupon sites are the example of that. But who is Google to decide what the particular site should be covering or writing about? I mean, this Google's determination of, you're a such and such a publication, you should write about these three things and not about these other things. I mean, there's a lot of spam on these sites, but who is Google to make that determination at all? I mean, they should not be making that determination. Now, having said that,
it's their sandbox. I think they should be allowed to do what they want, but I think as more people get frustrated by the low quality of the results and Google keeps scrambling behind the scenes to edit them by hand, to me, that is a losing proposition, especially if someone like ChatGPT comes along with a better mousetrap. So.
Well, I mean, Google's entitled to rank people how it wants to rank people, but it shouldn't be dictating the terms of editorial coverage to a publication. I mean, I guess it's up to the publication to take the consequences if they want to persist in their behavior. But all right, so we're done on that topic.
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
All right.
Over to you.
All right.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.